And we have Adrian Gardner, the CIO at NASA Goddard, here to talk about return on investment in mobile technologies and how ROI and the definition is in a way shifting with mobile. One of the things you spoke about in a panel discussion just a few moments ago was the distinction between savings and cost avoidance,
right,
and what that means. And I'm interested in what that means both from a management perspective, but also in terms of how you measure that. And you made reference to difficulty in some of that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult to measure it. Until we actually get a hold on what model we're going to use for actually telework and workplace support of our employees. And so until I think you have that model established where you're going to have a certain percentage of the time of the individual or your entire workforce is going to be spent teleworking, I think it's going to be very difficult to get to what the return on investment is. So I think as agencies begin to standardize on that, so if an entire agency says, I'm adopting a telework policy and all of my folks will exercise and work at home, and then I actually eliminate my infrastructure costs around buildings and heating and cooling and so on and so forth, I think it's going to be very difficult without sort of a structured approach of saying what's going to be in and what's going to be out from a standpoint of looking at cost savings and cost avoidance. The next shoe to drop is then saying it is a cost savings or a cost avoidance. If I say it's a cost savings, then they're going to begin to apply that to the bottom line budget of saying, okay, you're saving this amount of money, so now we're actually going to reduce your overall cap, your overall budget cap, to that amount because now you're assuming that folks are teleworking more, or 50% of my workforce is teleworking. So I think agencies have to grapple with that and make a decision about the way in which they're going to approach it. So that's, I think, some of the difficulty that we have.
Right, well that certainly makes sense. Another issue you raised was at NASA Goddard, do you have a sort of a fly before you buy
right.
policy? Tell me what that means.
So a lot of times, you come in, you see vendors, and they want to instantly sell. And so the question becomes, and they state that they have all these capabilities.
Right.
And so really we're saying come in to our infrastructure and prove it. So before we actually make an acquisition, I really would like you to come in and prove that your actual capability will demonstrate what you're actually espousing it will.
Right.
And so actually this fly before you buy, or this bake-off concept, is saying, hey, and I'd like a number of folks in your space. So even if you look at a Gartner Magic Quadrant and you say 3 or 4 companies are in the Magic Quadrant where you would want them to be, bringing them in and then actually saying, prove that you are the top. And then look at the pluses and minuses of each. And that way, it makes us a better informed consumer and a more, so I know that on the front end of the dialogue before I enter into the contract and actually procure.
Right, and you're conducting a pilot program this summer?
We're doing a pilot program on virtual desktop infrastructure.
And does that play into the fly before
It does. So we're looking at, well, I'm not going to say the companies, but we're looking at a couple of companies where they're coming in and actually going to showcase their ability to virtualize the desktop and looking at the pluses and minuses of those companies, and then seeing what will potentially work within our environment. We're really looking at this as beginning to as part of our mobility strategy.
Okay.
And so how are we going to really become more mobile without looking at the desktop and gaining access to desktop resources in order for our scientists and engineers to actually do their jobs. Wow. So definitely part of it.
And just one final question for you. How do you balance the expectations of employees to have access to all these wonderful technologies they have as civilians against your needs for security, for data integrity?
Yeah, it is a delicate dance. I mean, and again, I think now what you're seeing is that the issue of mobility is now going to really be at the data level. And so I think we're sort of changing our sort of focus on security from around the hard outer shell that we normally have that would set the boundary for an agency, and you have this sort of GUI inside, and now beginning to look at, beginning to look at zoned architecture around networks, so creating levels within the network. The other is then really looking at how we secure the data. And so data encryption and the like are going to have to be part of the solution that we implement.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you very much.